Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is having a wonderful day. It is middle of May, but it already is starting to feel like the middle of summer here in Austin, Texas. Last couple of days, but as someone who's originally from the Midwest, I'm okay with it being hot instead of cold, so I can't complain
I
too much.
feel you on that.
Yeah, definitely feel better with that. Today, I am joined by Tessa Nappi,
Hello,
the owner
hello.
of Paws Pets. How's it going today?
Going good. Going good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Again, again, beautiful day. Again, a little warm, but otherwise, things are going well. And so I got connected with Tessa a while back. I can't remember when we first connected through Facebook, but on
Hmm.
some business or real estate related thing. But wanted to bring her back on because I saw she was, kind of doing the entrepreneurial thing and sounded like kind of an interesting story. Her love of pets and everything. So again, appreciate you taking the time to jump
Yeah,
on and do the Austin Spotlight with me.
of course, of course.
So I kind of always start each episode with trying to get a little bit about the guest origin story. So, one, so many people from Austin aren't originally from here. So it's always kind of
Hmm.
interesting to hear where people are from. And on the occasion that someone is from here originally, that's actually more interesting as well, too, because it's kind of a rarity, it feels like. So yeah, kind of tell you a little bit about your background. What kind of brought you to Austin? When did you kind of move? Where from?
Yeah, sure. So, I am born and raised in New York. I originally moved out here in 2017, um, and in September, so it'll almost be 6 years now. I was hired out here in Austin at a veterinary clinic called Austin Vet Care at Central Park. They were a dual clinic at the time, so they took care of like emergencies, but they also did general practice like Monday through Friday, like 9 to 5 type thing, but they always accepted walk-ins. At that point, I was in love with emergency medicine, so I was on our inpatient side of things. So I was taking care of the hospitalized patients or the emergencies that came in that needed like critical care and need to be hospitalized. I was a vet tech for a couple of years, about 3 years before I moved out here. So it's been about 9 years that I have been in the field. Yeah, so
So
from New York.
what obviously what got you into wanting to be a veterinarian? Obviously, I'm assuming there was a love of animals and love of pets in that regard. But what kind of sparked your interest in that field?
Yeah, so well, my passion was always to be a veterinarian, not just a vet tech. With money and school debt and everything, and a lot of life happenings that never completed, my degree. But I just always had a passion for animals. I fell in love with emergency medicine right before I moved out here. And I love just being on my toes, walking into work and just never knowing like the medical aspect of it. Like there's so much to learn, so many different cases to see. And then so I fell in love with emergency medicine. And then I just, you know, being able to be like that voice for animals when they're in pain and they're really sick, and just being able to be like their advocate has always been like a huge passion of mine, because they can't speak to us. It's hard to tell sometimes when your pet is sick or what's wrong with them, because they're not going to tell you, ow, my leg hurts. um, just being their advocate. And I'm kind of nerdy in the sense where I love medicine, I love science, so that's kind of mixed the two, like my passion for animals and my love for medicine.
Nice. Yeah, and a lot of times animals actually do a good job intentionally of hiding it. I mean, house pets maybe not quite so much, but right, like
Hmm.
especially wild animals, which all dogs and cats are kind of bred from that aspect. Like it's in their best interest not to show weakness and not to show
Right,
pain, because
right,
it's that's going to be something that gets attacked very
right,
aggressively
right.
out in the wild. And so they have to, so they're just naturally, their instincts are to kind of hide it and not show that. And so it's one of those that can be uh, extra challenging, and
Hmm.
you can't get across to them that, hey, let us know about this early and we can make this better for you. Or
Right,
it's hard enough sometimes to get people to want to go into a doctor to do preventative
true.
medicine. So for an animal, it's even more challenging that way.
Hmm.
What did you always have kind of a passion? You mentioned obviously having a passion for medicine. Where did that kind of come from was that because I feel like on the medical side of things, like there's a lot of things that people kind of enjoy dabbling in, right? Like somebody might like working on their car, but they don't want to become a mechanic,
Mhm.
or they might like doing, some things here or there. But I feel like most people that I know who get into medicine, there's not really a whole lot of middle ground. Like, yes, the human body, and there's interesting components to it, but like
Mhm.
people who like to go into emergency medicine, whether it be a vet or into a regular hospital, like just somehow really love it to where most people don't like blood, don't like gore, don't like all stitches and stuff. And so
Right.
it seems like they're kind of very opposite type of people. So what drew in your passion or love for medicine?
I think just like the passion came from being with animals. Like I love animals, and I think that when I was like 5, I was like, I want to be a vet. Like that is my calling. This is what I'm meant to do. And just I think that where it came from is just like my love for animals and how I feel as if animals are able to really they're like therapeutic. For me, I have a certain type of relationship that I think that many people do have with animals, but there's certain people who have like a very, very close bond to their animals, and some people are like, well, this is just my dog, you know. And for me, like my animals growing up and everything, like they were just like my best friends. Like I leaned on them, I loved them. They like brought me so much happiness. I was like, I can't live without them, and I was like, I want to be able. I guess it's just kind of how it like I evolved. I was just like, how can I help and be around animals every day, all day, like forever. And I was like, I'm going to be a vet. um, and I think like my passion just comes from like, it's so hard to explain, like just that feeling that I get like from my animals. Like they're just like my babies, like there's, and I understand and I can value like for other people, like how important an animal is. Like that's
Mhm.
their family. It's not just to a lot of people, some animals are just animals, but to also just as many people, like animals are part of the family.
And I would
Um,
and I would say that even more and more that's the case. Like I mean, again, there definitely
right,
are instances where it's, just kind of a family pet versus a member of the family per se. But um, even 10, 15 years ago, I would say it was probably flipped as far as the majority of people had a family pet and they still loved it and stuff, but it was the family pet versus a
right.
part of the family per se. And now it seems like it's the reverse to where most people's pets are their kids are their I mean, like it's kind of crazy to some degree how much of a shift that it's been in that regard. And so
Mhm.
obviously at that point you have people that um will do a lot for their pets because of all the joy and all the things that they brought to them
Mhm.
in their
Yep.
lives.
I can speak on that. Working in emergency medicine, I mean, you see people drop thousands and thousands of dollars on their animals, and do everything possible to help them, to save them, to make them better, and lots of money. I mean, they're expensive. Animals are an expensive addition to a family, that's for sure.
As someone who has enjoyed being on the emergency vet side, how challenging is it? I mean, obviously, I'm assuming the majority of pets that you would see would be dogs or cats, but
Mhm.
obviously, there are a lot of other types of pets who might come in through the door that you're not necessarily expecting when you go into work that day. How challenging is that to have a wide variety of patient breeds? um, and different types of animals because obviously, unlike going to the ER for a human, well,
Right.
yes, your injury may be different, but the anatomy of every human is basically the same.
Mhm.
So, like, if you know what the problem is, here's how to fix it. Where the anatomy for animals, even again, different breeds of dogs, let alone dogs to
Right.
cats to snakes to hamsters to all those different kind of things, are definitely going to have some additional challenges that way. How big of a challenge or how much does that play a role in the emergency or
So
veterinary
for
medicine?
me, it was pretty mild just because I didn't work. Like there are certain hospitals that see exotics. So for us, like we didn't really see exotics. So if we had some, like we would refer them away to a veterinary emergency clinic that did see exotics. Um, I will say that I have dealt with, bunnies and squirrels. My favorite was a baby cub, a baby lion, that we had hospitalized overnight. And it was just, I mean, that was like an experience
Yeah.
you wouldn't get anywhere else. Um, that was pretty cool. But for the most part, we didn't really handle many like pocket pets and stuff like that. We would refer them to exotics because our doctors didn't see any exotics like that. So
Sure. Again, right, like, just because it's definitely a completely different animal than your dog
right.
and your cat would be.
So you have your doctors that specialize in that, you know. I had worked at a clinic for a short period of time that saw birds and stuff like that. And it was, I mean, it's cool. It's definitely a learning curve because there's like new things to learn about something when you feel like you've like mastered cats and dogs or like, oh, this is new. This is like something, you know, it's a new challenge. Learn how to handle it, learn its dosing for drugs, how to put an IV in it, like something new, you know? Um, so I dipped and dabbled in a couple experiences like that over the years for sure.
Nice. And so then so you were doing the emergency vet tech for about 9 years and then decided to transition over into owning your own, business?
Yeah, mostly that's kind of how it went down. I had a bit of a back injury, and so I went on medical leave, and at that point I wasn't paid. So I was just um, uh, like doing my services for people in their homes in the meantime, as I was working, you know, doing chiropractic work and trying to like repair my back and everything. And I was just very happy. I felt like my quality of life was better. And so I had put my notice in and I had left and just did my business full time.
Nice. With
So
on the emergency vet side, I'm assuming it'd be the same kind of random, 24-hour on-call kind of stuff that you would have in the medical space as well too?
um, we
Maybe
didn't
not
have
on
on
call, but
we didn't have on calls. I like our surgery team and stuff did for stuff like that.
yeah.
But for me, like I was just working roughly about 50 hours a week. So 412s. And basically, you know, it's very strenuous. My first like almost my first like 4 years out here, I was doing overnight work. And then the clinic I was at got purchased as corporate and we separated from that dual clinic. And I went over to our new clinic, which is right down the street of on Guadalupe. And they did specialty and emergency. And so I stuck with the emergency because the other clinic was just strictly general practice. So I moved to that new clinic.
Were there many differences at all from going from New York to Texas as far as the
Yeah.
yeah?
The pace was a bit different, obviously. So I feel like here in Texas, pace was a little bit slower than New York. So that was a little bit of adjustment as far as like in the workforce. And just, I mean, I think that was like the biggest difference, you know. Other than that, you know, everyone. I guess the other big difference would be like out here when I started working out here, everybody was just so friendly, and New York is a little rough around the edges, you know. So like
Mhm.
people treat you a lot less friendly with a lot less respect, whereas out here, you know, everyone was just so welcoming and so friendly, and that can be hard going into a new in the medical field. You know, there's a lot of cutthroat attitudes and stuff like that. And so, but out here, it was just everyone was just so friendly and welcoming, which was really nice.
Yeah, I feel like in Texas, a pet's like an invitation to come up and say hi most of the time, or at least say hi to someone's pet.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but like in a lot of cases, where obviously
Mm-hmm.
in New York, people tend to be, you do your thing, and everyone kind of leaves each other alone,
Yeah.
um, and not more standoffish, I guess maybe would
Right.
be a way to put it. And so, which can come off as rude. I don't know that it necessarily always is that way, but there definitely is a different kind of culture vibe,
For
in that
sure.
regard too. And then
Mm-hmm.
for me personally, I've always kind of felt like one of the reasons, at least Austin specifically as well too, is it seems more inviting, is that again there's so many people like yourself, like myself, who have had to relocate, and so there's just more there's a mindset of people of knowing that you were new at one point in time and you enjoy, like just getting to know new people is kind of part of that. Hey, if you were willing to travel across country to some place you're not familiar with, hey, then meeting new
Right.
people and kind of being a little bit more outgoing is kind of something that you have to be willing to do to kind of get, become a part of the community. And so I think
Right.
that
Right.
because there's just all of those people from all different parts of the country, it kind of leads just to that being a little bit different vibe than, again, in New York, where not that there aren't people that move there, but it feels like a lot of the people that are there have grown up there and maybe even lived in that
Mm-hmm.
area for a couple generations.
Right. Yeah, definitely very different culture.
And you mentioned it's like the pace of stuff obviously a little bit different, which I think most people understand. But even like the pace at work and stuff like that was different, or just the pace of life of needing to always be on the go, or both.
I would say like the actual work was
Okay,
slower. And I learned to like become more patient by living
sure.
out here. But yeah, like actual working and moving and getting things done was a little bit more chilled and relaxed than what I was used to. Um, but I mean, definitely not a bad thing because in
Yeah,
medicine, it's probably always better to take your time than not, for sure.
sure. And I think part of that also comes from, and we're seeing it now as real estate prices are increasing here, is like for a business that just recently got a lease where the rent's gone up 50% in the last 2 years, they have to do a lot more business to make
Mm-hmm.
that lease and that rent pay off. And so again, same thing from a vet standpoint, right? Like if you're a vet in New York City and you're paying New York City real estate prices and rent prices, like you've got to get a lot of work done in order to kind of make that uh,
Yeah.
be a profitable business. Where again, if you
Mm-hmm.
if you're here in Austin, even though obviously prices in real estate have gone up quite a bit, they're still nowhere near New York prices. And so you don't have to necessarily go and get as many procedures done or as much sales done in order to kind of have
Mm-hmm.
a successful practice or business that way.
Right.
So with your business, Paws Pets, fun alliteration there to try to trip up people who say that. So it started off kind of as more of a necessity with you getting injured. That way, what kinds of things does your company provide the pet community here in Austin?
Yeah. So when I first started off, and then I've had my business actually since I was living in New York.
Okay.
I just like I branded myself, I built a Facebook page and all that, but due to working in the field, I just never had time to do this full time. So I would just pet sit and I would just do different services on the side for extra additional income. And so I had my business, I just hadn't been able to like run with it 100% full time. So when I started off, it was a lot of pet sitting. I had a couple clients I was doing subcutaneous fluids for their animals that were in kidney failure. Something like your typical person wouldn't know how to do unless you're trained to like give fluids as a technician. I have clients that I do simple injections for, monthly allergy injections, vaccines, because they're too frightened at the vet and they're a better candidate at home. I don't provide the vaccines. Of course, the vet, if they're comfortable with a long-term client, will like provide it with their client, and then I'll just hop in, do a little poke, and we're done. And then it kind of started off like that kind of stuff, like pet sitting and medication administrating, stuff like that, before I went full time. And then I started to groom. That became there's a huge demand for it. And so I kind of learned as I go, self-taught. And so I started grooming. I also took on training because I've always loved training animals. I've trained a handful of my own dog and friends' dogs. So I kind of just ventured into that, and that's one of the services I offer that I love the most because, like, your animals live a long period of time. Like, you want to enjoy them. You don't want to be frustrated with them all the time. And there's a lot to training, and there's a lot of very easy, quick fixes to different behaviors. So I'll do basic obedience training and also like behavioral training. So if barking, jumping, aggression, those kind of things, but also just basic things like sometimes I have puppies that I train, sit, stay down, all that fun stuff, leave it, and all that good stuff. And then pet sitting, of course. At this point, I only offer pet sitting like in South Austin in my area. Obviously, with gas prices and like people usually want their pets checked on 2-3 times a day, and that's only really possible if they're local to me.
Sure.
I do offer pet sitting up north, but it is my partner. One of my other, I have two veterinary technicians that don't per se like work for me, but I kind of outsource any inquiries to them. Up north, I have somebody near Cedar Park, and then I also have someone in like Domain area.
Sure.
So it's not off limits. And then other small things like people need individual grooming services like nail trims, ear cleaning. Some people just want, like, the dog's paws shaved, which just individual services. But I'd say at this point, my business majority of inquiries I get is for grooming
Yeah.
and pet
Has
sitting.
have the services and stuff kind of evolved based on what people start asking for, or was it something where you wanted to always offer kind of all these different types of things?
I always, yeah, wanted to learn how to groom, and offer that service. It's kind of like almost like for me, I'm a very creative person. I'm a very hands-on, like I'm not artsy, but I'm like creative. So for me, I always wanted to learn it because it's like you get to kind of individualize things and be creative when you do it. Um, so that was something I always like kind of wanted to bring into my business. And eventually I started off, and it just, there's such a high demand. Like groomers usually are booked out months and months. And then the thing that, makes my business unique is that there's a lot of dogs that are too anxious to, go to grooming salons or even be in a mobile van. And then you have a lot of dogs that are aggressive that just do so much better at home. I have a handful of dogs I have clients who have dogs in heart failure who can't be like heavily stimulated because they can have a syncopal episode where they'll just faint, or even worse, of course, because they're in heart failure. I have older dogs who can't stand, which groomers will turn away. So I'm able to kind of cater to those people who groomers can be very particular in who they do and don't want to service because there's such a high demand. There's
Mhm.
plenty of options. But me as a small business owner, like I don't have unlimited options, and I also have a lot of experience like dealing with, dogs that can't walk and elderly heart failure dogs, and so that I think brings in a little bit comfort in itself that I have that experience and I know like would know what to do in a situation like that, and whatnot.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's probably something that you kind of enjoy being able to provide, as well too, because it's something that's not some something that the average groomer provides.
Yeah, and I mean, like these animals need to be groomed. It's part of their quality of life and feeling good. And so, like, if no one's gonna do it, like I can take pride and say, like, I'll do it. You know what I mean? And I've even like helped people out who don't have a ton of money. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not here to just turn you away and say, oh no, like I won't work with you financially. Like, I'll, within reason, of course. I have to consider like my time and my gas and so forth. But like at the same point, it's like these animals, like they don't have a voice. You know what I mean? Like, and being clean and groomed and not matted and that forth, like that kind of stuff, like that's part of their quality of life.
Sure. No,
So
unfortunately, I'm sure, you have to pay bills as well too, so it's one of those where
yeah.
it's one there'd be a lot of things that'd be kinda nice to be able to work for free from time to time, but it's like, well, unfortunately, everyone else won't let me live my life for free, so it's not gonna be
Right.
an easy thing to do
Yeah.
that. Um, so what are kind of some of the goals and plans for the business going forward? Obviously, you mentioned that you kind of have. It almost sounds like they're more like referral partners for other parts of the city and stuff too. Do
Hmm.
you plan to kind of just continue to grow, focus mostly around the grooming side of things, or any specific?
um I personally would like to continue to grow. I would like to get to a point where I can hire somebody to do the grooming. Not that I dislike it. It's hard on my back still. And I have some other plans. I am hoping to, in about June or July, I'm hoping to launch a new service where I offer like start to finish party planning for dogs' birthdays. Where like you kind of just pick the place and I essentially create the invitation, um, set up, clean up. Like you just show up with your friends and your dogs. And I'm working on the business plan now, kind of just like what type of packages I want to offer and what they're going to include and all that good stuff. So I'm hoping to like kind of get that ball rolling by like June or July. And kind of, I would love to get to a point where I can pull away from grooming and hire somebody to do that part and then focus on that. And then I'm also hoping to launch like my own homemade pet treats and then kind of evolve into like, pet treats with purpose, like CBD treats, dental treats, stuff like that. So those are kind of my goals moving forward. But I'm still wanting to offer all my services the way I do, and I think having pretty much all of my friends are vet techs, so having that is really nice because I think that makes people more comfortable when they have somebody watching their pets, especially if they have past medical issues or if they need medications. I have clients who have cats that need, insulin injections twice a day and stuff like that. And so that kind of, and every technician I know knows how to do CPR, stuff like that. So that kind of eases people with pet sitting. And just even when you're grooming, there's times where hey, your dog has a mass, like, or a lump I'm concerned about, or I did an anal gland extraction and I found a polyp on the dog and I was just like, hey, you should probably get this checked out, like just like those types of things that like maybe your average groomer would be like, oh, that's weird, but like I'm able to kind of gauge like, is this important, stuff like that.
You have the experience, not that you necessarily diagnose it, but you have the experience to know, hey, this is something that you should definitely go get checked out or get more information about versus just thinking this is something that's normal or
right, or just got missed.
Yeah. Or not realizing it. Like you say, that's if I was grooming a dog, I just wouldn't even realize that it was a thing at all.
Right.
So, what are some of the best ways that people can get in touch if they have more interest in either the grooming services or any of the other things that you offer?
Yeah, so Facebook is a huge platform for me. Obviously, when I started my business off, I didn't have a website. I do at this point have a website, but my website is like I'm kind of reconstructing it at the moment. But once it is back up and running, it'll just be pawspetco.com. But Facebook is really my biggest platform. I do have an Instagram. I don't seem to get a lot of business from Instagram, but I kind of just I like to post like grooming pictures and stuff. A lot of clients are like, hey, do you have any pictures of, doodles you've done or Malteses you've done? And I'll just kind of send them to my Instagram. So I just kind of post my clients there and I like to, show happy animals at home, comfortable, like during groomings or when their parents are out of town, stuff like that. And just kind of, obviously the whole purpose of my business is for it to be low stress, for pets to be comfortable in their own environment. And it's also convenient for owners and just for owners also to feel comfortable as well, be able to like watch or sit by. A lot of my regular clients, my owners, like they're working from home, so they're like in another room and I'm just grooming. But like a lot of owners are like, like I think my dog has been traumatized at the groomer, which is very possible. I'm like, you're welcome to stand here and watch and just you can chat and you can give your pet treats and pet your pet whatever you want to do. But I think as far as my platforms go, I think Facebook is probably my best way to reach me.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, I wouldn't have necessarily thought, but I'm sure there are some pets that, again, just the way people don't like going to the dentist, that some pets don't like going to the groomers. And so this way, having it in their own home and having their owner to be able to be there if they need to can probably be reassuring.
Yes, I think so.
Very nice. Well, I really appreciate taking the time to jump on the Austin Spotlight and chatting about it. Again, it's always interesting to hear just all the different types of businesses and business owners that we have here in Austin, Texas, and their stories, because each one's unique and a lot of the businesses are super interesting. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yes, thank you so much.
Hope everyone out there has a wonderful day.
Bye.